Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, depending on where you are in the globe. Welcome to the Global Forum on Shaping Africa's Agenda on Green Jobs and Skills at the second Africa Climate Summit. So good to see each and every one of you. I think we'll start with just hearing from some of you on the chat. If you can just drop a chat, tell us where you're from, where you are tuned in from or listening from, and we'd love to be able to acknowledge each and every person that has made time for this session. And we are hoping to have a really impactful time, a very fruitful, engaging forum that will begin to shape the agenda around green jobs and skills in Africa, and more specifically around the Africa Climate Summit that is happening in Addis Ababa from the 8th to the 10th of September. Um, Great. I can see some claps. A lot of you are giving me some emojis. Thank you very much. We have a good number of attendants, and I know that some people are still yet to join. And as we do that, I'd like to be able to just start by saying this forum has been curated specifically for you, the African voice on the continent, the person on the ground who may or may not have an opportunity to actually make it to the Africa Climate Summit. The reality is this is one of Africa's biggest convening around climate. And the reality again is that we do need to come up with African-led solution across the continent that is geared towards climate change. But to be able to do that, we need an able, ready, skilled workforce. And so we feel, as Jacob's Ladder, together with our partners, that this is an important conversation that must take center stage when we are at the Africa Climate Summit. And one of the reasons we chose to have this forum is to carry as many voices from the grassroots as possible to be represented at the summit, to ensure that what is actually happening on the ground is tabled, is discussed, is deliberated on, and actionable, impactful solutions coming from that summit that will trickle down to the people who are actually doing the work on the ground. That's why we're here. So I hope we'll have an amazing session. I'd like to first of all thank all our partners and all our sponsors that have believed in the vision and put their hands together to work with us at Jacobs Ladder Africa to make the green jobs and skills agenda at the Africa Climate Summit real. I'll start with the African Union, outside of whom we would not be having the Africa Climate Summit too. We'd also like to thank the Ethiopian government, the Africa Climate Summit committee that has put all this together. We'd also like to thank some of our partners that include UNECA, UNEP, the Addis Ababa University, PACJA, WWF, AGRA, World Vision, P4G, Friedrich Ebert Stiftung, among others. We have a number of knowledge partners that we've been working with. A lot of work has gone into the pre-summit preparations. This forum being a very key forum as well, leading up to the summit. And we look forward to being able to have an impactful session. So just to be able to give us context as to why we're here and why it is important that we would have this forum, I'd like to invite the brainchild, the visionary behind the Green Jobs and Skills Pavilion of Jacobs Ladder Africa and her partners to give us a kind of a background as to how we got here and why it is important that we would have such a forum and also be able to do what we're doing at the Africa Climate Summit in Addis Ababa in a week's time. So without much further ado, I'd like to welcome our co-founder and CEO, Sela Bogonko. The floor is yours, Sela.
Thank you, Manda. And good afternoon, good morning, good evening to one and all. I absolutely thank you for making the time to be part of this forum, as mentioned by Mandarina. This is really to give an opportunity to everyone to be able to give your inputs into a document that will shape the final declaration around green skills and green jobs. We understand that given the economic challenges and just perhaps other dynamics in terms of the demands of other forums that may be going on at the same time, It's not possible for everyone to travel. And so we thought to create this pre-summit, and we will have a post-summit review as well of the extent to which we feel and we see and experience how green skills and green jobs are being factored in the conversations at a very high level at the Africa Climate Summit. Just by way of background, in 2023, as we all know, Africa offered to host the first Africa Climate Summit. And my excitement around that, as I've said in many forums, was that finally we were creating our own table and inviting people to come, as opposed to going to someone else's agenda that has already been set. And so it was a great opportunity for us as Africa to determine our priority areas and also to provide the world with solutions, whether it's the finance solutions or just for solutions around climate change that Africa is able to offer, ranging from being a carbon sink, one of the largest carbon sinks in the world, the arable land that we have, over 60% of our land, having potential to actually be able to provide food security for ourselves and other people, the renewable energy potential, critical minerals, the list goes on and on. And so we found ourselves in a place where we could have fronted, or we did front solutions. And one of the things that became evident is that we don't have to wait for others to define our agenda. We can actually set the agenda for the world, not just for ourselves. And so there's been many conversations, part of which are ongoing, a reflection on to what extent what those agendas or the areas that we fronted actually captured the intent of Africans, but also to what extent were they implemented post the summit in 2023. And those are questions that will be sent out for you to be able to interact and share your views, especially for those of you that work in the space. It would be important for you to be able to know what has happened since the last Africa Climate Summit. And so as we go into the second climate summit, we as Jacob's Ladder Africa put together a pavilion that's purely dedicated to green skills and green jobs, with the idea being, can we create a platform for those that are actually working on the development of skills and the development or the creation of jobs on the continent, to be able to share best practice, governments that have done this successfully in one sector or the other, people that are actually providing solutions, whether in the private sector or civil society, or a combination of different best practice models that can be then adopted across the continent or by other countries. And so for those of you who will be there, you are most welcome to Jacob's Ladder Pavilion. It's going to be an accompaniment or a platform that provides a lot of the various people who are participating in the summit, an opportunity for them to be able to share their views and also contribute to the outcome, because whatever will come out as a report from Jacob's Ladder and the pavilion, together with our partners, will be fed in directly to the declaration and then into the final report. Now, allow me to just share, by way of framing, 5 things that I think in the process of learning on or providing solutions or working in this space with various partners, what the 5 things that we have highlighted for ourselves that we note need to be addressed from an African perspective. The first one is, we all know that there's a gap between academia and industry. This is not just in terms of general skills, but it's that, well, the industry and the world and the continent is talking about green skills and green jobs. The curriculum in many of the universities and the learning institutions, even primary schools, high schools, have not adopted green skills. And so that creates a big challenge, because it's a difference of worlds when it comes to what they're learning in school and what they will come to deal with in the real world. And for us in Kenya, we've come up with a way of addressing the second challenge, which we found as policy cohesion. Many African countries are not lacking policy. The challenge is policy cohesion. How is private sector contributing, civil society to the same goal, not working at cross purpose? How can everyone, how can you have a multi-sectoral approach to addressing the same challenge? And so for us, if you come to the pavilion and if you read our report later on, you will hear of something called the Alliance for Green Skills and Opportunities, AGSO, in Kenya. It's a model that we've created where you have government, private sector, education institution in terms of academia, civil society, everyone who's working, many who are working in the green skills and green job space, and working together to be able to, we're working together to be able to make sure that we're not duplicating effort. We are building on each other's work. We are collaborating a lot more, and we're helping government move the needle, or helping each other move the needle in terms of the skills and in terms of jobs. So that's one of the things we'll be launching and discussing at the AU Pavilion and also at our pavilion. So if you are around and you're interested, please do stop by for that conversation. The third thing, which is again something that I have been amplifying quite a bit in the recent past, is we've had this statistic that says that 1 in every 4 workers in Africa, in the world by 2050 will be African, which is something that we should be celebrating. But in my view, it shouldn't be a cause for celebration, because it only says that we'll be the most. It doesn't mean that we will be the best. And yesterday I shared something on social media where China is developing factories that have robots that will work all night, all day in dark factories that don't need electricity. And everyone was commenting about that. That means no taxes, no wages, no insurance, no lights. In terms of power, your cost of production is significantly low. You cannot go head to head with a country like that, that's extremely powerful in terms of labor, and say that their labor or their civilization is declining, meaning that they're becoming fewer and more aged, but they're doing something about it. So you can't claim that as Africa we are in a better position. We are not. And we do need to do something about it. And that means adopting technology, skilling our young people. A lot more has to be done and needs to be done. And we have to wake up and actually think about the future and what we're doing as a continent, as far as being able to make sure that we're not just saying we're the most, but that we're amongst the best by 2050. The fourth thing for me is lack of awareness. Climate and green skills remains a boardroom conversation and a conference conversation. Many of the young people that you meet on the streets, your average young African, does not know what green skills are. And so there's a need for a lot more advocacy to create awareness of these opportunities. And that, of course, needs to be a collaboration amongst the different stakeholders and actors. The fifth thing that I would say is that as we negotiate, whether it's at COP or in climate finance forums or at Africa Climate Summit, as we negotiate for more investment, more climate finance to flow, etc., we also need to specifically have a portion of it go towards skilling, because there's no use of saying that we want renewable energy projects rolled out in Africa, and yet we don't have the workforce to be able to roll out those projects. We are lying to ourselves, and we are not prioritizing well. For every project, every, say, $100, there should be a portion or a percentage of it that goes towards development of the requisite skills for that project to be beneficial to the community and or to the continent. And so we need to go beyond the negotiating for negotiating's sake to actually negotiating with the mind of capacity building of our young people and our population. My last point is that we do need to think about African relevant skills, because while climate change is a global challenge, the solutions have to be at the grassroots and they have to be local. And that means that the skills that are required at that local level are unique. And therefore, we need to be able to talk about Africa relevant skills in terms of, for example, renewable energy. As we drive towards that, it's not just the manufacturing of solar panels, but how do we leverage our competitive advantage to be able to make sure that our young people can produce the technologies that are required for us to tap into the renewable energy? Who says that we have to stick to the technologies that have already been discovered? There has to be a lot more investment in making sure that we are providing solutions, whether it's in agriculture or in transport, that are relevant to the African continent. And on that note, I'd like to welcome you to the global conversation on African green skills and jobs, and absolutely hope that we can make the most of this. Like I said, everything that comes out of here will go directly into the report and will shape the conversation at ACS, and of course, the final report that will come out on what does Africa need in terms of green skills, and green jobs. Have a great afternoon and enjoy the rest of the conversation. Thank you, Manda. Back to you.
Thank you so much, Stella. Some powerful points there. I will not belabor the point. I know that for as many as are here, they already switched on to the need of skilling, technology, being at the forefront of what the future looks like in terms of the green transition, and ensuring that our workforce is adequately skilled and being able to translate and take up some of these opportunities. On that note, I will say that for as many as of you who are on this call who will be at the Africa Climate Summit 2, do ensure that you sign up to come to the Green Jobs and Skills Pavilion that Jacob Zada Africa will be having. It will be posted on the chat. Just click the link and register, and we look forward to seeing you physically there. But if not, this is still the forum, the platform for you. We are looking forward to ensure that we carry your voices to the summit and beyond that. Speaking of the summit, there is a team of people who have been working tirelessly behind the scenes to bring together the Second Africa Climate Summit. And we want to hear from them exactly what they have planned, what we should expect in Addis Ababa, and tied to some of the topics that we are really interested in seeing being pushed forward, which is green jobs and skills. I'd like to invite the chair of the Communication and Media Committee, Ministry of Planning and Development, Ethiopia, Mr. Mansour Nouri. Mr. Mansour, the floor is yours.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes,
Hello?
we can hear you loud and clear. Go ahead.
Okay, thanks so much, colleagues from Jacob Leaders Africa. Yes, of course, I'm just at this international convention center right now. I'm just would like to just convey just some few issues regarding to the, of course, the summit that we will start shortly. And I really thank so much for inviting me to address colleagues here in the room. Okay, yes, as you exactly said, this Second Africa Climate Summit will start, of course, by next week, exactly next week by Monday, September 8th. But it will also have pre-summit events on the 5th of September. Especially, we are very pleased to host the second Africa Youth Climate Summit 2025, which will be commenced and held on the, of course, officially opened on the 5th of September. So I will not take much of your time, but I would like to really convey that the green job is one of the key agenda for the Second Africa Climate Summit, because the Second Africa Climate Summit aspires to change the narrative that Africa is portrayed as a victim, the only victim to the change impacts of the climate change. Yet we have a lot of green and ambitious climate solutions on the ground, but no one is there to speak about those. So that is to be recognized. If African member states and organizations who are working for Africa in Africa is complemented with a true and real partnership and financial and investment collaboration, the global challenge that we are facing today in every of our life will be effectively and efficiently addressed. So the Second Africa Climate Summit will just give spotlight the Africa-led climate solutions will be on board and will be discussed and will realized and compiled, so that we will have a flagship initiative report, how Africans are really delivering what is expected from the member states of the Paris Agreement, UNFCCC, etc., though the financial flow to Africa is very, very low. So to that end, what we would like to do, we would like to really facilitate the recognition of Africa's effort in climate policy and action so that the international community will change its mindset to the actual realistic and practical situations what Africa is doing. So that's a big issue, the turning point. That's what we advocate for the last 30 years is about really waiting someone to come and do something. But that was not realized actually due to the many issues. So we would like to really design ourselves in such a way that Africa has ambitious climate policies and prefer green growth so that investment, partnerships, and also climate finance will flow into Africa with that match with the ambitions that Africa is really providing. So that's a big issue. That's why the theme of the Second Africa Climate Summit is named, entitled as Accelerating Global Climate Solutions, Financing for Africa's Resilient and Green Development. So this resonates with the Jack of Leaders Africa's priorities and also visions to create green jobs, address climate change, while at the same time economic issues. So for Africa, economic issue, livelihood issue cannot be separate from the climate actions that we all are advocating for that. So it's a good opportunity that Africa has a lot of resources so that if we collaborate with real commitment from our counterparts, and also if we, again, from Africa are there to just present what we have at our hand and our policy, our of course, interest and aspiration, how we would like to make use of the ample resources what we have, especially nature-based solutions that we have, could really address not only the poverty issues and the sustainable development matters and etc., but also the climate challenges that we are facing in Africa, and also even our contribution as Africa can address the global challenges in terms of climate change. So that's why that's what we would like to hear from every participant of the Africa Climate Summit to design its events, their events, leaders also actually convey those that bold statements, and other organizations who are working for Africa also design and also reshape their narratives in such a way that it attracts both investment, partnership, and also finance. So I mean, the issue that we advocate for the last 30 years, that we are really vulnerable and impacted by climate change, so that someone should simply give us finance, etc., cannot work. I mean, they having to work. So at this point, we need to somehow we have to re-examine our approach, how we are approaching the international community and ourselves, so that I mean, the challenge that we are facing today could be effectively addressed. So that is the basic issue that we would like to hear from, for example, Jacob leaders in the pavilion. Thanks for really hosting, securing a pavilion here in at this international convention as a summit, and also every community and also participants of in this room should also just advocate what we are exactly this one. So today we are living in a world that social media can make difference, can impact, I mean, can bring results. So I, as a chair of communication and media for the Africa Climate Summit, I would like to kindly request you to support the process to achieve the process to come in a result that we anticipate to come. So the expected outcomes should influence the globe. including COP30, UNGA and G20, etc. And the finance should be reformed. That should match with Africa's ambition in terms of policy and also resources what we have. I mean, simply extracting raw materials, etc., cannot work. No more work. No more work having simply that one. So the justice and realization of aspirations of Africa to address both climate change and economic issues should be addressed equally and importantly. Back to you. Thanks so much for inviting me again. And I would like to, I will also warmly welcome you to the Second Africa Climate Summit. Hope I will see many of you in Addis by next week. Thank you back.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mensur Desi. I think it's absolutely clear that the Second Africa Climate Summit is leading with Africa-led solutions. And it is really, really the track that we should be on, because for a long time we've had a lot of imported solutions that are not based on local realities and, local dynamics that not many people understand who are from the outside looking in. And so I think it's a brilliant focus that we are speaking about when approaching the Second Africa Climate Summit, that we are all about Africa-led solutions, and the more reason that this platform, this forum is absolutely important. The people on the ground are in this call, and so it is our goal to ensure that as we go to the Africa Climate Summit, however many who will not be able to make it, this is the platform for us to be able to really speak and carry your views, your questions, your concerns, to be able to actually make tangible, outcomes from this ACS, second ACS. So do stay tuned, and we look forward to hearing from you when that time comes. I'd like to also invite a second representative from the Ethiopian government, who is also the chair of the Africa Climate Summit 2 Non-State Actors and Inclusivity Committee. And he's the national coordinator of the Consortium for Climate Change in Ethiopia, Mr. Jonas Gebru. We'd love to hear a few remarks from you. Welcome. Jonas, are you there? I see Mansour's hand is up. Mansour, do you need to say something? Okay. Mr. Jonas, you have the floor. If you're in a position to kindly unmute and speak.
Can you hear me now?
Absolutely, yes. Please go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I think I was muted, and thank you, Madam Moderator. Actually, I am not representing the Ethiopian government. I am from the civil society sector, and speaking on behalf of the Non-State Actors and Inclusivity Committee. If you can hear me now, let me read to go to my written message. Mr. Mansour Desse, Climate Institutional Development Advisor and Chair of the Communication and the Media Committee. Dr. Mitika Mwenda, Executive Director of the Pan-African Climate Justice Alliance. Ms. Sela Bogonko, Co-founder and the CEO of the Jacob's Ladder Africa. Distinguished colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, it is a privilege to be on this global virtual forum today, convened by Jacob's Ladder Africa on green jobs, skills and development, and Africa just transition to a climate resilient future. I am really honored to represent the Non-State Actors and Inclusivity Committee for the Second African Climate Summit and engage in this discussion that is at the center not only of our national interest, but also of the collective aspiration of Africa as a continent. As you all know, in Africa, millions of young people are searching for decent jobs, and the continent is facing critical climate challenges that are threatening livelihoods, food security, and ecosystems, among others. By connecting climate action with inclusive economic opportunity, we can transform these challenges into solutions that can benefit our communities, countries, and the continent as a whole. In Ethiopia, we have always envisioned the link between climate action and sustainable development. Our government has, over the past decade, developed various policies and strategies for promoting renewable energy, climate resilient economic development, and nature-based solutions. These actions are guided by belief that environmental sustainability and economic growth must go hand in hand. Especially renewable energy projects like solar, wind, and hydropower are not only reducing carbon emissions, but they are also opportunities for creating jobs and triggering local entrepreneurship. Similarly, investments in climate resilient agriculture are enhancing food security, resilience to climate shocks, and creating opportunities for youth and women to be part of the green economy. The government also directly engaged non-state actors, as we recently noticed that we are involved in the preparation and the countdown to the African Climate Summit 2, in which civil societies, youth networks, academia, the private sector, all are included in an effort to ensure that climate policies are inclusive, pragmatic, and also community-driven. This engagement strengthens our capacity to put in place effective interventions while promoting ownership and buy-in among all stakeholders. Africa's demographic reality is both a historic opportunity and a formidable challenge. With the continent's population estimated to double by 2050, the youth will increasingly determine Africa's workforce, innovation, and leadership. However, a long-term green skills shortage can drag down the transition to climate-resilient economies. According to some expert opinions, in order for Africa to seize the opportunities in a green economy, it must prioritize the following three areas. That is, the first one is workforce readiness, the other one is inclusion and equity, and the third one is finance and economic value. It is not practically possible that one country or sector alone can address the magnitude of change that Africa needs on its own. It takes deep cooperation among all actors, meaning governments, the civil society, the private sector, development partners, and the communities as well to realize an inclusive and just green transition. In addition, well-planned investments, technical cooperation among the different actors, and the knowledge sharing are key for unlocking Africa's untapped potential. In this regard, the second Africa Climate Summit that will be taking place in Addis Ababa from 8th to 10th of September, after few days, will offer a critical forum for such kinds of cooperation. It definitely offers an opportunity to harmonize continental priorities, accelerate multi-stakeholder partnership, and put green jobs and skills development at the forefront of Africa's climate agenda, as my colleague Mansour was mentioning minutes ago. Therefore, if we can come together and join hands, we can make sure that the continent's green transition is possible and will happen as planned. However, the responsibility rests with us to act decisively and inclusively. Africa has the talent, Africa has the resources, Africa has the innovation to lead the world's green transition. Yet, these opportunities can only be tapped if we put skills, inclusion, and finance at the forefront of all climate actions. Therefore, all stakeholders, including the government and the development partners, need to commit to one, investing in skills development for the emerging green economy, creating pathways for inclusion, aligning climate finance with workforce, and finally embedding local knowledge and community perspectives in all climate interventions. Together, we can ensure that Africa's transition is equitable, sustainable, and as well as transformative. Finally, I would like to thank Jacob's Ladder Africa for organizing this global virtual forum on green jobs and skills, which is timely, and I look forward to rich dialogue and collective action that will bring us nearer to our shared vision of Africa's green economy. Let us move rapidly but with inclusiveness and ambition, such that the second Africa Climate Summit in Addis Ababa will mark a watershed towards a rich, resilient, and climate-smart Africa. Unfortunately, because of another meeting, I can't stay with you, but I wish you a good time and thank you so much for listening.
Thank you so much, Mr. Jonas Gebru. I love the challenge versus opportunity. And for all of us here, I believe we're all on the page of the opportunity that is available when it comes to the youth population in Africa and how these youth can be translated into workforce. But we also agree that if this is to be actualized at, conversations, convenings like the Africa Climate Summit, we need to make sure that there is workforce readiness, there is inclusion, and there is the financing to actually see this workforce adequately trained, systems developed, institutions formed so that we have a workforce that is ready to take up these opportunities across the continent and for the youth of Africa. Thank you so much for your comments. I do see the chats. I see you speaking from the different corners of Africa. Please keep your comments coming. We'd love to see where you're from. Amar from Nigeria, good to see you. Orieni, I hope I have not butchered your name, from South Africa, good to see you. Waithira from Kenya, good to see you. Continue to post on the group. Let's connect, let's speak. This is your forum, and we want to hear from you above everything else. And on that note, I'd like for us to really get into the meat of the reason we're here, to be able to actually hear from all of you that are on this call around the specific thematic areas that Jacobs Data Africa is focusing on within the Green Jobs and Skills Pavilion at the Africa Climate Summit, which happen to be aligned to the themes of each day at the Africa Climate Summit. As it has been mentioned before, that the overall theme around the Africa Climate Summit, Second Africa Climate Summit, is accelerating global climate solutions, financing for Africa's resilient and green development. For Jacobs Data Africa and our partners, we are, as Green Jobs and Skills Pavilion, are focusing around three points that I have touched on. Jonas has also touched on as well, but I will read them out one more time. The first thing is workforce readiness for climate action, and that will be what our focus of day one will be at the Africa Climate Summit. And I want us to be able to drill down and get your thoughts, your opinions concerning that particular topic, so that we carry your views along to our pavilion and to the Africa Climate Summit. The second one is inclusion in the green economy. And finally, financing skills and economic value. So to start us off with the theme one, which is the workforce readiness for climate action, and I'll tie it to theme one of the Africa Climate Summit theme for day one, is nature-based solutions, technology, energy, and resilient infrastructure. Now, I have just two requests. The first one is, when I do ask this question, I'd love to hear from as many of you as possible. The question will be posted in the chat box. Once that question is posted in the question and answer box, my apologies. Once it's posted, if you're not in a position to speak, we'd love for you to type out the answer. If you are in a position to speak, do put your hand up and we will get to you. We want to be able to hear from each and every one of you during this session. So the first focus theme, as mentioned, is workforce readiness for climate action. And the question I have for all of us in this room when we speak about workforce readiness is, as climate interventions scale across sectors, is Africa's workforce equipped through skills, through systems, and institutions to deliver and sustain them effectively? As climate interventions scale across sectors, is Africa's workforce equipped through skills, systems, and institutions to deliver and sustain them effectively? This can be a yes or no answer. This can be a yes answer with a qualification and a no answer with a qualification as well. I'd also love for us to be able to give real life tangible examples from your lived experience, from your personal experience. Where have you seen that some of these climate interventions that we're speaking about, that we speak at a lot of at these summits and say, you know, some of the solutions we want to be able to roll out, do we have a workforce that is skilled to be able to actualize some of these solutions? Are there systems in place and institutions to deliver these solutions and deliver them effectively? I will open up the floor and hear from my audience. And I always say I love people who are interactive. So don't let me down. Interact with me. Any takers for these questions? I see some hands up. Great. Give me a minute with this technology. I need to find you. Okay. I'd like to hear from Tanja. Tanja, when I call you out, kindly introduce yourself. Tell us your name, if you're from an organization or what you do, but just a sentence, your name, what you do, and the country you're from, and then go ahead to answer the question. I'm giving each person 2 minutes to answer, after which I'm going to have to cut you off. So keep it short and sweet.
All right. Thank you very much, Mandarina. Can you hear me? Yeah. So my name is Tanja Dedovic, and I work for the International Organization for Migration. I'm based in Cairo, in Egypt. And we are working for the past 4 years here in this region, North Africa, very much affected by climate change, water scarcity, increase of extreme temperatures, on controlled environment agriculture as a way to be able to continue to produce food, to ensure food security. We have been building a training program on controlled environment agriculture in partnership with industry experts, talking about the need to align training programs with the needs of the private sector and with academia. We are working with the American University here in Cairo and also with a partner university from the Netherlands that is very much leading in that sector. And the aim of this training program is to produce a skilled workforce on controlled environment agriculture for the countries that are suffering from these climate effects, from water scarcity across North Africa and also in the Gulf, and to enable young people with these skills to also move with those skills to where they are needed. So we call that skills mobility partnerships. Countries form partnerships to develop the skills which are needed in specific sectors, in this case, in controlled environment agriculture, to train a skilled workforce for both countries, the country where the training is taking place, and also for the countries that invest in this skills development in the countries of origin, because they need that skilled workforce as well for the green transition. So what we do in a nutshell as IOM and what we can contribute to this discussion that you are having today and that you will carry to the African Climate Summit next week is the importance, and I'm fully there with you, to invest in a skilled workforce in the countries of origin, for the countries of origin to have that skilled workforce, a pool that is large enough to cater to the needs of the countries of origin, but the people who will have these skills are also able to move with those skills where they are needed. So to allow also skills-based labor mobility.
Great.
I think I leave it there. And
Thank you.
happy to pick up on a discussion with anyone who is interested to work with us on these solutions. Thank you.
Thank you, Tandra, and thank you for highlighting the work that you're doing. This is why we're here, just to be able to carry some of these interventions happening across the continent. Great to hear what's happening in DRC. Would love for you to drop your how we can contact you, get to know more about what you're doing in the chat box, and for people to see what's going on. But absolutely great to hear from you around what you're doing. I'll have Anedi Inyang speak for 2 minutes. I will stop you once the 2-minute mark is done. Let's hear from Aniedi Inyang.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Anedi Yang from the Niger Delta region of Nigeria, from Akwa Ibom State, where the oil extractivism, mining, and all is degrading the environment, coupled with climate change, where diseases and all sorts of things are happening with them. I'm working with the women and the youth, and we are hoping that the conference of ACS2 is going to bring meaningful, practical development to Africa. My adding to the question is, I have been attending webinars, conferences, interactive sessions as concerning Africa. I want to find out, when will the real practical solutions, like the green jobs, the skills, when will it come down to the level of the youth of Africa, where the indigenous communities, where the local communities and the indigenous population will have access to some of these things? Because most times these things are only put forward out there to daylight. So when you said, is the green job skills or whatever, has it gone down to Africa? Do you think they have the skill? I said, no, they don't have the skill, because 1,001 are flooding the streets with hunger and starvation. There is so much fight. There are so many regions in Africa. There is war because of lack, because of means of livelihood. The extractivism here, the northern global north are depriving the south of the economy. The tax, the loans, and all is depleting the economy. And we don't have enough for the hospital, enough for food sustainability, enough for the training of youth. The skills are quite there, but who is sponsoring them? Where are the finances to put in this? So I want to say that we should go into the practical aspect of it.
Okay.
That we have got enough of the conferences and the training. We need the practical aspect of it.
Absolutely. Thank you, Aniedi.
We want it now.
All right. I am definitely on that bandwagon where no more talk, where you're asking for meaningful, practical development on the ground. I love that you're from Niger Delta, and speaking about marginalized communities, this platform is exactly curated for that. Marginalized communities, youth, women, people living with disabilities, to be able to say how is actually these solutions we're speaking about at the Africa Climate Summit trickling down to the most affected and vulnerable, and are they being heard? And so I'm glad we have been able to hear from you. That's why we are here. I'd love to be able to throw this question to two individuals. Engineer Jabesh, I'd love to hear what's happening in Ghana. Do you feel that the young people, or just generally that there is skills systems in place to deal with the climate solutions that we are speaking about at some of these summits across Africa?
Sincere thanks, Manda, and to the team at Jacob's Ladder for the opportunity to contribute to such a critical discussion for the continent. I think my answer is not going to give anyone any pleasure, particularly because it's going to be rather multivariate and consider a lot of the different contexts within which different people are executing their work. I think that the broader answer is probably the overarching answer is no, but with the context that in certain areas, the continent's skills, systems, and institutions have done more in particular areas than others. So I would like to think that, for example, in terms of let's say commercial and industrial or home systems, with specifically with respect to solar, that a lot of the continent's skills are probably as high as they probably can be for the time being. I think that when it comes to the other forms of renewable energy technology, we're probably not where we need to be. And I think that in terms of systems and institutions, um, I don't think anyone here will be surprised to hear me say that I'm not sure that a lot of the systems and institutions at at an individual level in terms of systems, but also at an organizational level are necessarily where they need to be in order to generate the sort of outcomes that and hopes and support the hopes that a lot of people seem to have for Africa's climate journey. I do think that in terms of technical expertise, that we're getting there. I think that on a lot of the other softer skills, we're probably not there yet. And specifically relating to systems, I think it is particularly difficult to convince people to hand over funding if the projects themselves, your own people aren't willing to fund. And so I think that there's a lot of work that needs to be done on indigenous systems from a financial and a development perspective, and even I suppose what the world would call a risk perspective, to be able to get projects to the point where they can be funded and generate the impact that that they hope to be able to bring to the table. Now, in terms of considerations for the multivariate nature of Africa's workforce equipment, I do think that in terms of that, there's a couple of, how do I say, my focus is going to be primarily on systems around which you can kind of place people, because having people who are skilled without a system that is able to utilize them is just going to get us exactly where we are now. And probably with more frustration to boot. I do think that our consideration around nature should not be devoid of our consideration of people, that people are a significant part of that nature, and whether that nature goes well or not is largely determined by the participation and the actions of people around it. Now, I also think that across the African continent, you know, even on conventional economics, we are the continent that possesses the greatest of opportunity.
Yeah.
I think that is, but we also are not. We also are the continent that probably doesn't participate nearly as much in terms of the opportunities that are being talked about. And I think in my work anyway, what I tend to see is a lot of folks that are seeking the perfect solution for things, as opposed to taking the early wins, of which in my mind there are so many to be able to take advantage of things that can be funded right now. People are waiting to achieve 100% grant funding rather than taking the 10% grant and getting a loan to get it done. And I think that it's time that we kind of got off the schneid when it comes to things of that nature in achieving both the financing and also the solutions coverage that we're looking for. Is you're not suddenly going to come up with a magic bullet that can be delivered inside a year that covers absolutely everything that we want. And we're going to have to take some of those early wins in terms of the opportunities in order for some of those jobs to start and get rolling so the lessons can be learned and the scale can be created over time. You are much better having a large percentage of something that is working than having 100% of nothing. I do also think that modularity and the African continent's ability to go through selection and prioritization of opportunities is critical towards being able to create all the sorts of skill systems and institutions. And Manda, my last point is going to be, I think that Africa to some degree leads the world in terms of mobile phone penetration. I think I seem to recall a statistic maybe a couple of years ago where in Ghana we average maybe 3 or 4 phones per person. And in my mind, when I think about that and all the sorts of great information and training and self-development material that is available on the internet, but then I find a lot more people spending their time on TikTok or downloading movies. The internet is not a tool primarily for entertainment only. It is a tool.
Jabesh? Is it me or is it Engineer Jabesh's internet?
We can hear you, Wanda.
We can hear you, madam.
Oh, great. Okay. I think it's his internet. Okay. But I think he had a varied answers around, is it our
Or
skill
self-determination
systems?
if you choose to use it as such. And I think to
Sorry.
some degree, we also need to.
Jabesh, I'm so sorry. We lost you for a while there. But we hear you around, yes, there is progress around technical skilling. There is a gap around soft skills. When it comes to systems, there are no systems or a small number or percentage of systems that are able to, deal with the climate solutions or interventions that are available. And your general answer being no, and there's room for improvement, and as well as climate financing, being able to use what's available now as opposed to waiting for the entire, bag to come in, as it were. So thank you, Jabesh. I'd like to give an opportunity to Durell Halson Mana from WWF. Manager for Policy and Partnerships. Durell, we'd love to hear from you around this question and more specifically around the work you do and the kind of progress or challenges you faced in advancing this.
No, thanks so much, Mandarina. Thanks so much, Jacob's Ladder. I think it's been a real pleasure working with you. With Jacob's Ladder, being partner in this interesting initiative on the Green Skills and Jobs Pavilion for the African Climate Summit one. And I want to start by going back to the opening remarks from your founder and CEO when she said, the ACS is the first time we've seen Africa setting the pace and the space for their own story. And I think this was interesting, especially coming after we just recovered from the COVID. And I also picked from what Jabesh said about we can't separate the nature from people. We need to find a way that the two go together. And I will say this because COVID gave us an opportunity to look at the intrinsic link between man and nature. And the fact that we saw that the whole world could be locked down because of what we're doing to nature. I think that was a good lesson. And when countries started resetting their economies, they all went back to nature as a solution. And so for us as WWF, we've been working in this space. And I think the interesting part of this pavilion and working with Jacob's Ladder Africa is how do we bring the conservation work we've been doing into the mainstream of economies? And so one of the problems we all know is Africa faces a big problem when it comes to unemployment. And we have the youth. They always say we have the youngest youth population or the largest youth population in the world. But again, how do we turn this youth population as a dividend for our economies? And for us as WF, one of the areas we see that as long as we keep looking at climate change from a victim point of view, which is what the ACS wanted to changing that narrative that we will no longer be a victim. We, as a continent, we have the solutions and there are opportunities in that climate change, in the whole climate change discussion. And so one of the solutions we're seeing is nature-based solutions. We see nature-based solutions as a job engine. And what we're saying this is that in 2020, WWF and the International Labour Organization did publish a report which they called Nature Hires. And there they were looking at how nature-based solutions can power green jobs. The report showed that investing in nature is not just good for nature and ecosystem. it is also a powerful driver of employment. So there we're seeing a good opportunity. Secondly, when we look at what are the jobs we're looking in the nature-based solutions, we're looking at watershed restoration. So we're looking at restoration. And Jabesh was talking about renewable energy, but also when we look at nature-based solutions, what are the opportunities there? We're looking at restoration. We're looking at mangrove rehabilitation. We're looking at climate smart agriculture. Earlier, I think one of the participants from Nigeria was talking about agriculture, and I think climate smart agriculture are areas where we can start looking at opportunities for youth employment. Urban greening or circular economy enterprises, looking at waste to compost or ecotourism. Now, in terms of readiness, and I'm talking about readiness in relation to the nature-based solution opportunity I highlighted earlier. Is Africa ready to deliver and sustain these interventions? I would say, and before even going into whether we are ready or not, I will talk about the three, the readiness. Where does readiness rest? For us, readiness rests on three pillars. And you mentioned that skills, systems, and institutions. Now, when we're talking about skills, we need, and I think colleagues, most of the interventions we've had today talked about technical expertise. If we need to look at our curriculum in our universities, how much do we learn about restoration ecology, for instance, when it comes to in our big universities that are either working on forestry or even on biology, life sciences? How much do we talk about restoration ecology? How much do we talk about carbon accounting? Do we in Africa today, when we have to talk about the carbon markets become a big area of intervention, do we have the necessary expertise to do carbon accounting? Biodiversity monitoring, that is something. So geospatial analysis, we have that, but are they adapted to look at issues around nature-based solutions, around conservation that can offer those skills? We also need vocational skills for hands-on work, for instance, on nursery operations in terms of reforestation and all that erosion control. Now, the second pillar I would like to talk about is on systems. Training cannot happen in isolation. We need systems that link learning directly to employment. For example, National Green Jobs Observatories, we can set that up to track demand and wages, outcome-based contracts that tie training to real employment, and MRV systems that track not just hectares restored, but also the jobs created and the quality of the jobs. And lastly, I'll talk about the institutions, which is, and I think we did earlier, we talked about, and I think it was the CEO was talking about policy cohesion. Coordination is critical. And one of the things we've been pushing for as WWF is the whole of government approaches that must align. And when we're talking about the whole of government approaches, we know when we're talking about skills, it's spread, especially in the nature domain, it's spread across different ministries. For example, the ministries of labor, education in terms of curriculum development, environment because they are the ones that see the opportunities, and finance because we need the government to put the necessary financing to support those skills. And we also have local governments that need resources to deliver community projects and urban greening initiatives. So yeah, in a nutshell, we could say Africa workforce ready. I would say we are not yet there, but I think like every other person, we have the necessary tools and skills to be there, but it all depends on how we all come together as a continent to start building this narrative that says Africa is a solution. So I'll leave it there and I'll be ready to pick up any question that come in. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Jurel. A lot to be said around the different opportunities in nature-based solutions that can provide workforce, opportunities in the different nature-based solutions you've highlighted. So we would like to continue to take just one more question in this theme before we move to the other, and I'll give the last opportunity to Dr. Charles Sanoa. Can you tell us where you're from, what you do, and then go quickly? I will give you 2 minutes strictly, and I will stop you at the 2-minute mark.
Okay, thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. This is Dr. Charles Sanu from WASCAL. WASCAL stands for West African Science Service Center on climate change and adapted land use. So we have we are present in 12 countries across West Africa. And then we have a headquarters based in Accra, Ghana. And then the research arm is here in Ouagadougou, where I'm based actually. WASCAL is working to provide climate services. And then this is one of the pillars. The other one is to build healthy career scientists. So we have university across these 12 countries where we are training scientists on climate change and across different areas. So this is it. Well, I would like to congratulate on this workshop and wanted also to give my view on this question as climate intervention scale across sectors. Is Africa workforce equipped through skills, systems, and institutions to deliver and sustain them effectively? So this question we cannot directly answer like this at once, but I think as from our experience here, like I was saying, building capacity in climate change area, which is at the long run give opportunity to African countries to contribute in clearly building resilience across West Africa. I think I can say that we have some of the tools and also we are building experience and capacities. Yeah, that will also help the region to sustain or to the different intervention to tackle climate change issues. But as we can know that from now, this skill, the question that we can ask, are there at the point that we can say that now we are ready clearly to have clear intervention also, to tackle all this issue of climate change. But we believe that we are on the way. So that is clear, in terms of skill and so on. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Charles. So it's work in progress from where you're sitting. I can see so many hands, but I honestly would love to give you all an opportunity. If you really must answer, do drop your answer in the Q&A box. But we'll move on to the next question so that we make sure we adequately tackle the three pillars we're looking to address today. So if we can move to theme number 2, which is as the Green Jobs and Skills Pavilion, and our focus at the Africa Climate Summit Day 2 is inclusion in the green economy. And we've already had from comments around that from Niger Delta, but we'd love to hear a little more on that. And that is aligned to the ACS theme on climate adaptation and resilience. And the first question I'll ask is, what progress has been made in advancing climate adaptation and resilience at the grassroots over the past 3 years? And this is tied to the first Africa Climate Summit and where we find ourselves now. And how have marginalized communities and indigenous knowledge been integrated into shaping these efforts? What I would like is if you had put up your hand for theme 1 question, please put it down. And if you are interested in answering this first question under theme 2, put up your hand. Okay. Marjan, I hope I've said your name correctly. You have 2 minutes. Tell us where you're from and your answer to this question.
Thank you. If I understand, you have to answer the question number 2. What concrete actions and partnership are needed?
No, question 1.
Question 1, theme number 2. Exactly.
Yes.
The progress has been made in advancing climate adaptation and the resilience at the grassroots. On a grassroots, we have been seeing what we call the environmental clubs, starting from primary schools to secondary school, for the case in my country where I'm coming from. But before we see how the communities and the indigenous have been integrated into shaping those efforts, first we have to understand each and every problem, mostly in our continent, it is because of the political climate in those particular countries. And this political climate, it involves a number of factors or a numbers of things, including one, friendship with other countries. For example, most of our presidents in Africa, they can adapt a certain program if it is coming from a certain friend countries. And so the political willing of that particular countries and policy of that particular countries, all this involving, and it is number one things we need to look before we provide any solution for this. So when it's come to grassroots levels, that's what I've explained. The environmental clubs have been working, but marginalizing a community and the indigenous, no. This depends on a political willing of that particular country. Okay. I hope I've been answered it. My English is not good, but I think the message has been clearly sent.
Yes, that's great. Where are you from? From
Tanzania.
Tanzania. Great.
Yes.
Thank you so much for your contribution.
Thank you.
Okina, please speak. And then we'll have Justin as our next speaker. 2 minutes each. Okay, if Okina is not speaking, can we have Justin? Okina, Justin. Okay, I see mic unmuted. No, that's Anedi. Okina or Justin, kindly unmute so that you can speak. Okay, if not, Julius Kungu from Kenya. You have the mic.
Yes, hello. I hope I can be heard.
Yes, you can. Go ahead.
Good. I'm Julius Getao from Kenya, and I'm also serving as Regional Research and Policy Officer for Commonwealth Youth Council. On answering to theme 2 on climate adaptation and resilience, let me take a look at question 1 about the progress that has been made in advancing climate adaptation at grassroots over the past 3 years, and how the marginalized communities and indigenous knowledge have been integrated into the efforts. Actually, I've been researching on several things on the Pan-African vision. I have come to discover that one of the issues that have lagged our continent behind in terms of climate adaptation and mitigation is the systems, especially on indigenous knowledge. We find that for now we have been talking about indigenous knowledge and how it can be digitalized. Of course, that is happening, but how is it being digitalized? For example, we have these UN and SDGs. We have national climate action plans. We have strategic plans on how to do about climate adaptation. But then I think on the part of indigenous knowledge being used, we don't find more efforts other than the committees that come up somewhere and maybe discuss using, like right now we are using colonial languages. These documents, which have a lot of knowledge, they are not accessible to the local community. So I have to this. Actually, I did a CABES certificate on indigenous knowledge and
Okay.
got
Julius, unfortunately, your time is
my
up.
certificate last week.
Yes.
Okay, I'm saying the documents need to be translated to local languages so that
Yes.
the knowledge can be accessible. Yeah, and I'm
Okay.
also saying, yeah. Okay, thank you
That's
very much.
fine, Julius. Thank you, Julius. I think I got your point around the indigenous knowledge. You saying that you do not think that it's being integrated in climate adaptation and resilience solutions because it's not widely known or even being adapted. I would like to give the opportunity to those who would like to answer question 2. But before then, I'd also like to give an opportunity to one of our partners who will just say very brief remarks, and that is Dr. Mithika Mwendwa, who is the Executive Director of the Pan-African Climate Justice Alliance. He is part of the team that is working on the Non-State Actors and Inclusivity Committee, which Jacob's Ladder leads the Green Jobs and Just Transition Cluster. So we'd love to hear from you, Dr. Mithika. You have the floor. Dr. Mithika, I just want to ensure that you have the mic. If not, we can go into question 2 and then come back after a couple of remarks. Okay. Question 2. What concrete actions and partnerships are needed across communities, government, civil society, private sector, and other actors to strengthen inclusion and ensure marginalized groups lead and fully benefit from green jobs and the just transition? Again, if you had your hand up for question 1 and you're not interested in answering question 2, please put it down. And I will assume the hands that I'm seeing now are those who are interested in answering this question. Okay, we have Starcy. Let me see if that's correct.
Yeah, it's Stacy. My name is Stacy Akinyi. I'm from Kenya. I'm a student at the Multimedia University of Kenya, and I'm also a climate action advocate under Polycom Girls. So for the question, what concrete actions and partnerships are needed? First, I'll go to communities and grassroots organizations because from the first questions, we identified a gap, even though there are actions to support grassroots organizations, there are still gaps. So my partnership will be that the community and grassroots organizations to be involved, and we have investments and local apprenticeship programs, and the government should also create rules and the public finance and procurement that supports nature-based solutions that are going to support our green economy. And we know that when students are graduating from the university, mostly in Kenya, where I'm from, they're actually mapped to jobs that do not align with whatever they studied with. So I believe that the government can create jobs in alignment to the courses in which the students graduated.
Thank you, Stacy. Thank you for your brief but very insightful comments around jobs and jobs mismatch or skills mismatch around what the private sector or the industry requires versus what you're learning in school, and ensuring that there is that connection. And then that's the partnership that would be required around government, private sector, to be able to ensure that young people, and I'm sure you speak for your colleagues, your age mates as well, around green jobs. I would also allow the opportunity to Okina, are you ready to speak now?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Go ahead.
Yes. Thank you so much for this time. I'm Sylvester Onyango Okina from Kenya, a criminology graduate, and I'm also a member of the Green Africa, the movement. Yeah, I'm here to talk on the second question, which reads, what concrete actions and partnerships are needed across communities, government, civil society, private sector, and other actors to strengthen inclusion and ensure marginalized groups lead and fully benefit from green jobs and the just transition. Just to begin, in most of our academia, the field of academia, we really lack such ideas, or we call it such motivations to include the study or the capturing of the greener jobs or the skills that can enable the Kenyan students to venture in maybe delving more time in these greener jobs and skills. So my option is we must have a clear curriculum review so that we include these ideas and skills in the curriculum. And also the political goodwill. We should have our governments being able to come up with good policies so that we can improve in in coming up with the green jobs and the skills. And also when the graduates are out of the universities, they should also be empowered enough in order to venture in these green jobs and skills that they have gained from the school. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Okina. I see the role of academia working together with government, working together with private sector to enable that there's transition into green jobs for the young people. Thank you for that. Anyone else who would like to speak to this question? Do raise your hand. Please also note the question box is open. You can type if you're not interested in speaking or not in a position to speak. I will also take this moment to say, beyond this forum, we are collecting as many voices that are willing to appear on camera to answer certain questions that will be posted in the chat box, that we want to be able to carry your voices to the Africa Climate Summit, your voices and your faces as well. So we're asking all our partners, stakeholders in the space, in the green jobs and skills space, to record a 2-minute video or shorter, 90, I was told 60 to 90 second video, speaking on some of the pertinent issues around green jobs and skills. So the details will be posted in the chat box, and we'd love as many voices from across Africa as possible. So do take time to record that video, and we guarantee it will be played at the Africa Climate Summit in Addis Ababa. I'd like to give the opportunity to, just give me a minute. There are many hands. Henry Danwawo, you have the floor.
All right. Thank you so much. Can you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear.
All right. So with respect to question number 2, though I wanted answering question number 1 as well, but for time constraints, let's focus on number 2. And some of the things I identified with respect to my work at Schrödinger Technology, where we provide safe drinking water facilities to households, individuals, and community in West Africa, to ensure that we strengthen the concrete action plans and also partnerships that are needed across communities, government, and also civil society and private sectors. We need to look at these 4 things. Number 1, communities. Number 2, government, civil society, private sector, and regional cooperation. And in terms of communities, we need to establish community enterprises in terms of the green skills, climate adaptation systems where we train youth and women, to manage these facilities, and then also to see how can we to promote local entrepreneurship in terms of maintenance, businesses, irrigation, smart farmings, water vending, and the rest. And talking about government needs to integrate green skills in curriculums, and that's in school, and also trainings into climate adaptation progress, especially targeting, youth in rural communities, because they are the ones who face the real challenges, and they are the ones that can be able to solve that, understand the needs, and then also to provide incentives for local manufacturing and assembly, for solar technologies, and also green technologies, or clean technologies as a whole, to generate more jobs, to reduce the burden on government. And coming back to civil societies and NGOs, they play a very important role. And they can also help us in facilitating capacity building workshops that will help us to combine both the climate management, renewable energy, and also business development skills to compensate these communities or these young persons that are trying to adapt or create climate adaptation solutions, and also to ensure inclusion of women is very important, and also vulnerable groups in terms of training and also leadership roles. And talking about the private sector, which that is where I play my own role, it's all about developing apprenticeship, whereby we train young persons, support institutions like universities that are offering engineering courses and other related, to train them technically, to give them first-hand practical experience on how they can adapt to these, movements in terms of installations, servicing, and also the rest. And also expand green financing models that support small businesses around the world, especially in our African countries. That is one of the biggest challenges we're having. We have solutions, but financing is a very big challenge. And lastly, talking about the regional cooperation, I think it's best that I always like talking about this health region, with respect to the climate effect we experience there. I'm from Nigeria, and also how we can align, with the SSA and also the Global Adaptation Plan to see how we're able to link, the challenges we have in terms of, climate security and also green job creation. So these are just my few points, and let me not talk much. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Henry. Thank you for your comments. Lydia Chibambo, you have the floor. I'll give you 1 minute, 30 seconds.
Okay, sure. Thank you. All right. This is Lydia Chibambo from Zambia. I coordinate the Climate Change Network, which is a PACJAM designated national platform. So my addition to question 2 around what is needed, I think my colleagues have mentioned in terms of understanding in terms of the capacity building. And also one thing I wanted to add on, especially when we talk of the just transition, also looking at some African countries that are positioned with critical minerals around the just transition that would also create green jobs. I look at the example of currently Zambia, Angola, the Congo DR, Mozambique are looking at strengthening the Lobito corridor in terms of the critical minerals around that, but also the key issue here is identifying also in terms of the consumers of what we want to produce. So I look at looking at the just transition is where now there's need in terms of partnership across different communities that are bringing different skills in the space of just transition. And I love the previous one mentioned in terms of the curriculum. I think we need to start these skills at a younger age. So really the partnership with the government relevant in terms of the education sector really needs to be part of this conversation, and looking at the curriculum at a younger age in terms of the skills that we need in the green jobs in the just transition, so that we are adding value to to what is being produced. So it is really looking at this, and then above all is the financing. How do we make these a project? We can talk about this, but is access to finance and the literacy around financial literacy is quite important that we need to look at. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I'd like to give an opportunity to John Mark Monica, Senior Program Manager at Friedrich Ebert Stiftung, FES, I like to say because I find the word a little...
Yes, FES is okay.
Great, go ahead.
Thank you for that. Yes. Yeah, thank you very much, sister. I think I can quickly just say thank you for this. I just run through some of the visible progresses that have been done. I know in Kenya, there's something called locally led adaptation. I mean, we have a policy where county governments receive performance-based grants. But at the beauty about this is that at the ward level, there are committees that will decide on which priorities that financing could go. This is something we can really look at as seeing real bottom-up planning. There are other things like our Niger friends have talked about, where we have farmer-managed kind of natural regeneration. Right now, as we talk, I'm told they could have regenerated about 7 million hectares of farmland, leave alone what is we have in the Ethiopia, where we shall have our climate summit soon. There is what they call indigenous faith-based stewardship, where faith-based organizations are freely restoring biodiversity. South Africa, we have an example of a circular economy livelihoods, where waste pickers cooperatives are being integrated into the national planning processes. In East Africa, we have our two-wheelers, the borders. We have pilots of how companies are trying to do battery swaps in Rwanda, Kenya, Uganda, lowering costs. However, sister, what is missing around this is exciting resilience parts is these very many local initiatives remain fragmented and not funded. They're disconnected actually from the national adaptation frameworks. They are looked at as just add-ons, and yet they are very central to resilience. The other thing I could speak to about the key on question 2 on the key steps is first and foremost from not just the workers' point of view is institutionalizing what we call social dialogue. I know from the workers' perspective, we already have a very well-documented tripartite, but we have now what we call tripartite plus, which now widens the stakeholders, making governments, employers, workers, and communities part of this. But we need them institutionalized and recognized for real engagement. And then, yes, this is about green jobs and investing in them. But I have a problem around what we define as green jobs. Yes, most institutions look at green jobs as contributing to preservation or restoring environment. Very good, politically, technically correct. But in practical sense, in Africa, green jobs as a concept must go further, because this looks at not just reducing carbon, but it looks at guaranteeing decent jobs, guaranteeing fair wages and rights at work. Because short of that, we shall be creating what I can call sweet shops, where we have excluding informal workers, excluding women, excluding vulnerable communities from the mainstream just transition part 1. And for this to really mean anything, the pathway in green jobs around just transition should be around social dialogue, social protection, reskilling, and re-employment. Maybe lastly, I would just quickly look at what our CEO spoke to in the beginning as she was opening around food security. Yes, we can talk about food security, but for me, from the African perspective, I think we should be looking at not just feeding people, because that's the food security thing that we have to feed people. But I think we should be looking at food sovereignty, because that is shifts to power. And especially when we look at women, because
Okay.
food sovereignty would be empowering women. Thank you.
Thank you, John, for your remarks. I'd like to give opportunity to Carol Tankeo. Carol, kindly keep it short. Carol is the founder of Women for Sustainable Energy and Climate Action. You have the floor, Carol.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Go ahead.
Great. Thank you so much. First and foremost, I would like to thank Jacob Ladder Africa team for the invitation and appreciate this webinar initiative. It has been really insightful. I'm the managing director of a Cameroon-based consulting firm specialized in environmental social governance, energy, and sustainability, in addition of being the founder of Women for Sustainable Energy, Central Africa. What we do, WASECA is a nonprofit organization that was founded to support Central African women in the energy and environment industry through career development activities, capacity building, and mentorship. I'm passionate about youth employment, and my work focuses on the gender and climate energy nexus. Coming back to our topic, green jobs are central in just transition towards environmentally sustainable economies and societies. A range of sectors will create green jobs in sub-Saharan Africa. Energy, construction, and agriculture will create the largest number of green jobs. From my perspective, the key question is how can we encourage young people to pursue careers in the emerging green economy? Unfortunately, climate change is not an exciting topic for non-experts. I believe Stella said that it's a boardroom conversation. And the reality is that young people aspire to work in technology, luxury goods, or finance rather than climate-related sectors. Secondly, as other speakers and participants rightly explained, I do also think that it's a matter of raising awareness and showcasing the opportunity that lie behind the climate crisis in very simple ways. When I meet young students, and I'm happy to know that students are participating here, I always advise them with concrete examples.
Yeah.
Like if you study economics, it's all right, but specialize in environmental economy. If you study law, choose energy policy. If it's finance, select climate finance, and so on.
Yeah.
And other examples were listed by Durel earlier. So some examples of green jobs also is important to share with young people, especially in order to make sure that they choose that, like efficiency specialist, green procurement consultant, organic farming, e-mobility, and so on.
Yes.
And I would like also, if you allow me, just to share the UN report, Green Jobs for Women in Africa, that states that women are well positioned in many sectors where green jobs will be created. Women are well placed to seize opportunities in all sectors and specifically in some. So do I have 1 more minute?
Unfortunately, Carol, maybe you can post in the group, and if you'd like to also share the report, that would be great. We really are out of time. Thank you.
I will. And so looking forward to meeting you next week in Addis Ababa, and for sure I'll visit GLA Pavilion. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Look forward to having you. Thank you, Carol. We are really running out of time, so we'll do the last theme 3, And I'd love for us to close this one out with a bang. I'd love to see many answers in the chat box to this question, and as many hands as I can take. I'll give 1 minute to each. So theme 3, which is what we will be focusing on as Jacob's Ladder in our 3rd day at the Africa Climate Summit, which is financing skills and economic value. Tied to the ACS theme, which is climate finance and African-led solution, my question is, how can climate finance be directed to training, enterprise development, and inclusive job creation, ensuring that climate action unlocks Africa's natural wealth and delivers lasting economic value? I'll take it again. How can climate finance be directed to training, enterprise development, and inclusive job creation, ensuring that climate action unlocks Africa's natural wealth and delivers lasting economic value? If you had your hand up in theme 2, please put it down. And if you want to speak for this question, please put up your hand and I will get to you. Okay. Nashan Adero, 1 minute to answer this question. Please go ahead.
Yes, thank you. I'm Nashan Adero, the Dean of the School of Mines and Engineering at Taita Taveta University, Kenya. And when it comes to ensuring that we can have skills development that is targeted at unlocking Africa's natural wealth and delivering lasting economic value, we need to focus more on the youth, their diversity of talents, and let's empower them through targeted skilling and also the infrastructure that they need, the laboratories, the technology infrastructure, because this is where most of our human capital wealth lies, because Africa is a young continent. So a skills revolution that is targeted at the youth is the high leverage intervention point that we need. And we need to look at it in terms of the 3 P's. The policy environment that is encouraging that, investment and political goodwill towards youth-led enterprises, and then the P in terms of the pipeline, how they transition from the classroom to industry and how that can be facilitated through industry partnerships. And then we have the P of the perception. Let's enhance our mindset, knowing that the youth can cause a real transformation when they are well-mentored structurally. Thank you.
Thank you so much. From Taita Taveta, we have a good relationship with the university and glad to have you on this call. Kathy Latiwa, your comments, 1 minute. Are you ready to speak, Kathy?
Yes, I'm ready.
Great, go ahead.
So, hi everyone, my name is Kathy Letiwa. I'm the co-founder of a program called Build Her a Future, which is enhancing the African female entrepreneur in circular economy in the 3 main sectors who are agri-tech with precision, renewable energy, and waste management. So, and I'm very happy to attend next week the summit, and especially because we are talking about skills and job acquisition. That's what green skills and job acquisition. That's what we are working for in Nigeria, DRC Congo, Togo, and Gambia. And for now, we are working in awareness and communication campaign. And I think some people talk about awareness a lot. So my answer to this question is simple. I think we said it already. Climate finance should be directed into green skills trainings, creating apps, clubs in schools, in communities, and also with education, with universities, and government should really invest in that. Also directed to enterprises incubation, inclusive job creation, especially for women and youth. I think we talked about it earlier, so that climate action not only protects Africa's natural wealth, but also builds sustainable livelihoods and lasting economic value. For my 1 minute. Thank you.
Great. Thank you for keeping time on that. I'd love to hear from Sharon Olende, also a finance and financial inclusion consultant. And after her, Lydia Mwithiga, partnership and fundraising lead, climate finance expert. Sharon, you have the floor. Kindly keep it short.
Yes, I'll keep it very, very short. Can you hear me okay, I hope?
Yes.
Yeah, I think for me, from a finance perspective, I think it's really, really key that we have a partnership model with traditional financial institutions, alternative financial institutions, and government. I think we need the private participation to see a change in the way climate finance is perceived in the market. And I think in other types of financing, the financial players have a very, very important role to play. And I think it has to be a partnership between them, government, academia when it comes to training. And as Carol said earlier, I think the perception that this is not it's a boring topic. I think it's very important to show the linkages to the youth, to SME businesses, that in your business, there is always a link to climate, to take some sort of climate action. I think it's important for private and public partnerships to show that linkages in the financial space. I also think that obviously in our markets around Africa, we have, it's the SME businesses that are really growth stage in the financial markets. And I think we really have to focus on incubating and training those in business, particularly small and medium-sized businesses, with the youth focus, to show them and to help support them in their climate-focused initiatives. I think there's not enough of that right now. You all know that we've been particularly here in Kenya, we have a very robust fintech market. I don't think we're doing enough to support early stage, small and medium-sized businesses in climate finance focused initiatives. So I think some of these incubators, for example, there are many in the market. We need to do a lot more incubation in the climate finance focused space. And I think lastly, I think measuring impact and measuring the outcomes. So if I am to support you and incubate, if we are to provide the training from academia, from the private, from the public partnerships, is it measurable? Is it actually having the effect in terms of outcome that we are expecting? So I think if we're able to show that from a measurement perspective, it's also key.
Great. Thank you, Sharon. Thank you for your comments. Impact, and measurable impact is definitely key around connecting to climate finance and scaling that. Last, Lydia Mwithiga.
Oh, thank you very much. I'm very happy to be here to contribute to this very important topic. I'm also very happy to have been part of supporting GLA when you're putting together your concept notes and preparing for your pavilion at Addis, and I believe it's going to be very impactful. So I'm a climate finance expert, and I've worked with the private sector and the public sector. And I can attest that from my work, there are serious gaps in green skills, both amongst the private and public sector institutions, and also amongst the youth. And for me, looking at this question, I think there are two ways that we can look at upskilling as growing the skills, the green skills that are needed in Africa to be able to implement the climate action. And for me, the first one is upskilling, is that we need the corporates, particularly the many private sector institutions, to be able to upskill their staff. So, and by doing that, they're going to be able to transition these companies and become the future employers of the skills that will be created for the youth. And the second one, very important, is the one that we begin to look at the ground up. That is where we think about mainstreaming climate change within our curriculum. And many of the speakers who've gone before me have highlighted this within our education system, because then what we'll be doing by doing this is we'll be skilling the youth to be able to offer the future green skills that we need here in Africa. So, but for me also, it's also important to look at what kind of finance can help us build these skills. And to begin with, I think we need to look at instruments such as grants to fund research within our institutions, that's the TVETs and the universities, so that we can be able to develop our own solutions that deal with our own climate challenges. And in so doing, we'll be able to create the jobs that we need. And we can also be able to come up with our own innovations that we can use again to solve our own problems, and which can also be replicated globally. And while by doing this, of course, it also means that our youth can be able to work anywhere in the world. The other type of finance, I think, that would be very critical for this would be risk capital. And the speakers before me have talked about the importance of providing capital for the small enterprises, or for institutions, for enterprises that are youth and women owned. And this risk capital is then supposed to help them not only upskill these enterprises, but more importantly, in creating the jobs that are quite critical for our continent. So for me, yes. So what would perhaps tie all this together as I finish is looking at the institutions and the policy framework, is how do we bring these two together to be able not only to mainstream, but just also to be able to ensure that the climate finance flows towards upskilling or creating the skills that are needed for our green transitions.
Thank you. Thank you, Lydia. And thank you for the role you've played pre-summit with JLA. We appreciate your contributions. And just before, Brian, I've seen your comment. I'll have you speak right after Dr. Mithika. Dr. Mithika, you're here. I'll give you 2 minutes to speak, and then we can close. I will just ask all of you to give me an extra 5 minutes of your day. I know we're to end at 5 o'clock, but if you'll allow us to end at 5:05, and then if Dr. Mithika and Brian can promise to keep it short and sweet, we will end at that time. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mandarina. And I really apologize. I was to speak earlier, but this meeting came when I had another one. So I was jumping from this to the other one. But good, I very, very I want to first commend the Jacobs Lander Africa for the passionate pursuit of this agenda of green jobs. And because many things have been spoken, mine is just to top on what has been said, and particularly then mention some few things which will be important for this very important session. For the first time, we have really a very visible pursuit on green jobs in the COP, in the summit, and this is very important. Just few things about the summit, because Mansour and Jonas actually mentioned this. One of the things which we need really to have or to remember on this summit is that it is a really critical moment to drive African leadership and the action on the road to COP, and to ensure African voices are heard, particularly in this very difficult moment of geopolitical interactions. Two is that we need to unlock Africa's renewable energy potential. And
many have spoken about renewable energy, but the just transition goes beyond that. This supports demand-driven climate action, and also it's global economic development. So they are two tied. Then thirdly, what we are doing and what you guys are doing is really the determination to mobilize one thing as which is really circled on day 3 of the summit. Climate finance mobilization, and happy to know that there are women here who have mentioned that they are climate finance experts. So let us meet here in Addis Ababa and see how we can push the climate finance agenda at the very high level possible. And we are actually working with ministers of finance, and we are going to have 2 key events for ministers of finance, really to ensure that they are part of this summit. It's important to embed them into this very important process, because we didn't do that yet. We need implementation, which is driven by ministers of finance and ministers of planning. And so this includes also how we do about adaptation, which is priority for Africa, and the adaptation which must be rooted in the needs and priorities of African countries, one with measurable finance commitments, stronger Africa-led platforms and flagships initiatives, then renewed commitment at the prudent financial architecture reforms which started during the FFD4, which are actually financial architecture reform is about embedding climate action into development and delivering of that mechanisms which work. So I want to conclude by mentioning 2 things. That transition to net zero by 2050, there are reports which has really highlighted this, is projected to create 26 trillion US dollar of growth opportunities in renewable energy, in wind power, in solar power, in electric vehicles, and also in geothermal, in those appliances. So what will be the Africa's opportunity in that? Out of this, by this period, we expect 65 million new jobs created by this sector by 2050. Yet we are crying about joblessness. So we have to ask ourselves the question, what is the place? This is global. We need what we need to carve for Africa. But then, as we ask ourselves, we need to know that Africa is the one which is driving this just transition sector. How? Critical minerals for clean energy, for instance, comes from Africa. DRC, for instance, controls 70% of world cobalt, which is responsible for this sector. Africa also come the 10% of world copper comes from the copper reserves are from Africa, but mostly from Zambia. Then Africa is home to 30% of world lithium, and DRC and Zimbabwe account for this. There are so many good stories from Africa, and I agree with those who said we want to approach climate action now. This is the story we want to sell from Africa. That climate finance, climate action is now an opportunity for Africa. We have been selling a challenge. This is the time as we take leadership for this. And I want to end by inviting you to some of the conversations which we have. We'll be launching some of these, and I think Jacob's Landa as the thematic leader on this, as the non-state actors and inclusivity committee part of that. We are going to discuss what slots you are going to bring during the NSA assembly on 7th September. We are going to give you more information. So your leader that will have a meeting of around 250, but it's very competitive. So maybe these colleagues who are in this sector, I hope that most of the people speaking belong to that cluster. So we are going to let you know how many you are going to bring. Also, we are meeting the COP presidency on 5th In Andina meeting, we'll also want around 2 representatives from your sector, and also the coalition of finance ministers meeting, pre-summit event also is very important, and then the Africa Youth Climate Assembly. So we have a lot of things which we are doing. Also, the final one is the African Just Resilient framework unveiling and the launch of Africa Climate Justice Impact Fund for Africa, which we are going to give you all the details, because you need really to circle the event which are going to add value to the sector which you are driving. Thank you very much once again for effort, and we look forward to what you do towards, during, and beyond the summit.
Beyond. Absolutely. Thank you, Dr. Mithika. We value our relationship with PACTA and all the work that we're doing behind the scenes. If you are interested in just keeping up to speed with some of the different opportunities that Dr. Mithika has mentioned, we have you on our mailing list and we'll keep you updated. We'd love to have you come to our pavilion at the Africa Climate Summit, Second Africa Climate Summit. And to register, it will be posted in the chat group. Make sure you register, make sure you come, and let's keep this conversation going even beyond the Africa's Climate Summit toward action and not just talk. Last but not least, I'd like to give Brian from P4G an opportunity to speak, and then we can close this. Brian, very brief, 2 minutes, and then we close.
Thank you, Manda, and the Jacob's Ladder team for arranging for this insightful webinar. I think a lot of things have been said, and one area where I would like to just add my voice on, especially on how climate finance can unlock inclusive growth, is through investing in startups. You know, across many of our sub-Saharan African countries, small and medium-sized enterprises are the backbone to our economies. I really think that climate finance can help unlock their potential by funding enterprise development, building skills across the various value chains, and creating jobs that are locally anchored and scalable. At P4G, we deploy early-stage catalytic grant capital to these startups, and helping them to become viable and scalable in emerging markets. Our investments are mainly designed to unlock green economic growth and attract larger volumes of private capital. By investing in these startups, we are creating jobs that are locally anchored. And I can just provide one example because of time. One example of a startup that we've invested in is Basigo, which is an e-mobility startup headquartered in Nairobi, and it's electrifying public transport in Kenya and Rwanda. They've actually deployed 84 electric buses and created 112 direct jobs. But their impact is much wider than this, because they are opening up an ecosystem of green jobs, such as electric bus assembly technicians, charging station installers, electric bus drivers, and digital platform operators. They've positively impacted more than 160,000 people, demonstrating how climate finance can create inclusive jobs across the entire e-mobility value chain. There's another one called Adagin Technology, which is based in Cape Town, South Africa, that is helping farmers digitize their operations from field to market. These are just but a sample of examples where when we show that we can invest in startups, we can unlock the entire value chain of green jobs, strengthening local economies and unlocking Africa's natural wealth. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Definitely concur in investing in startups. Also noting that Basigo is now, partnered with Jacobs Ladder Africa for a program we're running that is to activate university students called the Green Careers Caravan. So do follow our social medias to stay up to date with that, where we are activating now the workforce in the universities. And it's beautiful to see that Basigo was a beneficiary of your investments, and now they are helping open up the green workforce. So these things are actually happening on the ground, real opportunities opening up to the young people, to the marginalized, and we'd love to hear so much more, but we really are running out of time. If you had views that you wanted to share that you did not get to speak, again, do participate in the Voices of Africa. This is a campaign to carry as many voices as possible to the Africa Climate Summit. Record a 60-second to 90-second video and share it on social media. Tag us, and we will put all those voices together and show those voices at the Africa Climate Summit. Don't forget to come to our pavilion if you will be on ground. The Africa Climates at ACS, if you want to register, acs.jacobsladder.africa. We plan to keep you up to date with everything that's happening on the ground. Follow our social media pages. Every day we will be updating you per hour, per session, per event. So if you want to feel like you are there, follow us and we will keep you up to speed. Thank you all so much. Thank you for your time. 2 hours seems to have been very short. And so when we do have this post-summit, we want to be able to come back after the summit to have a session like this, to be able to unpack what kind of tangible outcomes came from this and what does this mean for us. Some of you in the chat box have said we need to work together. Absolutely. As Jacob's Ladder, we believe in working together. We are better together, stronger together, and hence having such forums, and grateful that you would oblige and join and come to join forces to have one agenda, the African agenda. I love what Mithika said, where we're not selling challenges, we're selling opportunities. We are the solution givers. We can create these opportunities if we work together and be able to push certain outcomes and deliverables and policies towards that. Thank you so much. Once again, look out for even outcomes that we plan on being able to push the agenda on green jobs and skills for the Ethiopian Declaration, and we'll keep you up to speed with that. But for now, it is thank you, good evening, good morning, good afternoon, good night. God bless you all. Thank you.
Close your mouth. Tamarita. Shut your mouth. Good morning. Don't mind me. I want to give you